Had I quit, had I given up, or, just been like, I can't do another hell week or another first phase where I'm done, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, obviously. But it's made my path like so much more rewarding.
Welcome to Mindset Lessons from the Field. I'm Gina Cazazza, the author of the upcoming memoir, Training with the SEAL. And today's guest does not let failure stop him from reaching his goal. He was in 6 BUDS classes, 2.5 Hell Weeks before graduating BUDS and making it through on March 2nd, 2012. He was on SEAL Team 7. He was sniper, breacher, a canine handler. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited to talk to this guest. I introduce you to John Collins. John, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Gina.
Well, first of all, 6 BUDS classes, like 2.5 Hell Weeks, like one isn't enough, right? And this is a really, really interesting story. And I kind of want to just dive right into it. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's go for it. So you were in 264, first class of BUDS, and you made it up to Hell Week, but got rolled for performance, right? In 20, that was around 07, you got rolled,
right.
And then you went back to the next class of 265 and went through Hell Week, but then got rolled because of medical. So let's go to the first time you got rolled for performance. Now, how did that feel for you, knowing that it was due to performance, not medical, which is, because I feel like I could be wrong, but like performance is more like it would be on you because it's not an act of God. Medical is more like an act of God, like, oh my God, this happened. Whereas performance is like, did I train hard enough? Did I do, you're more in your head. Did you feel that way? And how did you recover from that to get to your next class?
It definitely sucked because back then you had one performance role and one medical role. And then if you got another performance issue or another medical issue, it didn't matter. Like you were done, no questions asked. That was it. And getting a performance role that early in training it was swim times, right? I was not a strong swimmer at first. And, something like swim times, you're like, I can't believe I just, used my silver bullet on swims. It's like there's plenty more stuff you do in training that's hard. It'd be nice to save it for something like that. So I knew that like from there on out, I had to have like a perfect, flawless, training record. So once I got rolled, I just swam as much as I could up until like on my off time, up until I got back into next class, which I just got rolled one class, so there wasn't a lot of buffer time in between the two classes, maybe a few weeks. So I just did a lot of swimming in the pools, before training when I could, like before NDOC, we had a few. It's called PTRR back then. I don't know what it's called now, but it's not as heavy and intense as NDOC or first phase, so you get a little bit more time to train or do whatever. So I would use that time to train and try to get my strokes, get my stroke perfected. That first time through those first 3 classes that I was in, I never became a strong performer in the water. It wasn't until I, retreaded back into the pipeline that I had my swims lockdowns. I mean, I was still, once I got back into 265, I was passing by the skin of my teeth. I didn't swim in the ocean before I went to BUDS. Didn't swim a whole lot in the pool. I mean, I did, but it was more doing the PST training, like swimming 500 meters in X amount of time. I was ill prepared.
What was going on in your head when you were in your next class and you mentioned you were like getting by the skin of your teeth? What was going on in your mind to not be negative or not get hard on yourself to, keep going versus, getting down on yourself because you're just barely passing?
You don't really have the time or the luxury to feel sorry for yourself because like everything about first phase is go, go, go. You don't have time to really think about it. I mean, yeah, it sucks, but if quitting is never an option in your mind, then you don't have time to feel sorry for yourself. At that point, I had already seen the first 3 weeks of training, and I did it once. I knew I could do it again. I mean, it's not easier. I knew it wasn't going to be, a walk in the park, but I also knew that like it's not going to kill me. It's not going to, well, it breaks some people, but I knew it wasn't going to like break me to a point where like mentally,
Right.
right? So it like really, I mean, even to this day, like you asked me what I hated most about buds, and it was the swims, the ocean swims. Every Tuesday was a 2 mile ocean swim. And the minute we were done with that ocean swim, I was like the happiest because I'm like, this is the furthest I am away from my next swim, I don't have to do another one for a week. So I would actually just be stressing about these swims, and just passing them. And that was my first time through the first 3 classes.
How was your first Hell Week for you?
I mean, it was tough. But I think, going into buds, I put so much emphasis on Hell Week, and in my mind, I was thinking like I just imagined the worst possible thing I could ever do. If you think that this is the hardest thing you'll ever do, right? You build this thing up and put it on a pedestal, then when you get to it, right, it's like, oh, okay, this sucks, but it's like I'm enduring, and I'm
Hmm.
able to get through it. That's a shock at first because it's like you've never seen anything like this. You know, especially the beginning, the breakout, you got all the gunfire and all this. It's just chaos, and it's a shock. I mean, they hammer you hard for the first few days because you're fresh and not sleep deprived yet, right? So they put the screws to you, and that's where you see most of the guys quit is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then it starts tapering off after Tuesday because at that point it's like you're more than halfway through. You just gotta, keep moving. I mean, it still sucks. You're still, cold to the bone and running everywhere, and still got a boat on your head, and just, I mean, it's not and chafing and all that stuff. I mean, it still sucks, but you're beyond quitting at that point.
When you made it through, how did you feel though when you got rolled? Because it's like now it's like I have to, this is first phase. I just got rolled twice during this time. If I get rolled again, like I'm out. Like, were you feeling that pressure?
So I got rolled in the beginning of second phase.
Oh, okay. The beginning of the
Yeah,
message.
so I had made it to like a checkpoint. Like there's certain like
Okay.
checkpoints and buds. If you like my first, I didn't make the first checkpoint. I
Hmm.
got rolled right before Hell Week, so I had to go all the way back to the beginning. And there's stuff before first phase that sucks just as bad. Maybe not like physically or whatever, but it's just like stuff you have to do with the class and you can't get out of it. Got to second phase, so that was another checkpoint, and it was right in the beginning. So it was a medical role, which sucked, but it was there's nothing I could do about it. It was bad for me because it took me out of the game for a little bit. See, up until this point, I had thought that like Hell Week was the hardest part of training, and it's not. It's just like a gauntlet you got to get through. I mean, there's other things after Hell Week that are worse, and maybe not like physically or with the sleep deprivation and all that, but I mean, just tasks you have to perform. Like pool week, is another kind of Hell Week, and getting rolled kind of took my mind out of the game a little bit. I just kind of, I got soft, and I just kind of, I didn't think about, the challenges ahead, or I didn't take them as serious as I should have. And that's ultimately what got me dropped.
How did that feel for you then when you got dropped ultimately? I mean, what you just said was like I got soft and I like loosened up the reins for myself and
Yeah.
then boom, there it was. I got dropped and now I'm sent to the fleet. Now I'm Bud Stud. How did that what was
That's,
going on?
that is the worst feeling in the world. Like, I mean, that was crushing. And it really stung because it was all on me. It was all on me to a point where like I didn't quit, but I didn't perform either. And so this is my fault. You just get lumped into the category of buds duds, whether they're quitters or, drops. And it's like, and now you're out to the fleet, and, people on the fleet. I mean, don't get me wrong. I made a lot of good friends out in the fleet, but the haters are the worst. And it's because they are jealous, and you attempted to do something that they wouldn't even, they don't have the sand to ever even think about doing, they're happy to see that, oh yeah, come join us, come join us out here in the fleet in this world where a lot of people don't make it back out of and don't get an opportunity to go back and take another crack at the training again.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's kind of, I mean, there's a hopelessness to it at first. Like for me, I had to remind myself like daily and like throughout the day that like I'm going to get back and I'm going to do this. Like, this was just another, it's just another part of the journey and testament to the whole never quit attitude. And I mean, there were times when I was out in the fleet where I was just, we would joke around and say like, getting back to buds is harder than getting through buds. And then I went back to buds and I'm like, oh yeah, buds is still harder.
I was listening to one of your interviews, and it was very relatable when you mentioned that gut-wrenching, heartbreaking feeling when you got sent to the fleet, when you got kicked, let drop from buds. And it reminded me of when I lost my hearing, because for you, you said like you cried. I mean, you were really upset, and you allowed yourself to feel that, but then you were like, that's it though. Here,
Yeah,
this is the amount of time you get, and
right.
then it's time to go to work. And it reminded me of when I lost my hearing. I gave myself a weekend, and I go, you got 2 days to wallow and be like, why me? And then on Monday, we go to work and we do
Right.
whatever we can to get it back. Maybe you could touch upon like how someone who is in that low place can pick themselves up to move forward, because it's not easy. I feel like it's way easier sometimes to just sit in that negative energy, to just sit there and just give up and like whatever. And it takes a lot to just push forward when you have all these haters, you have all these people telling you can't do it, when you're like, yeah, it's going to take you a year to get back to buds. And that year, this is just, how do you stay in the game to keep being a victor? And how do you pull yourself to the victor spot?
Thankfully, what I wanted to do had everything to do with my physicality. I knew I had the mental part down. Like I knew I wasn't going to quit. I already made it through, two first phases, one hell week. I knew that I wasn't going to quit. I just needed to get another shot at it. Part of that meant getting my swims dialed in, making sure I was in shape, so that whenever I did get my opportunity, like I was ready. I worked out every day. So like the luxury of what I was trying to do was that I got to work out all the time. I love to work out, and you feel better mentally when you work out. It just kind of went hand in hand for me. It was like, I got to get in shape. I got to get dialed for the training. And also, I can kind of pull myself out of whatever funk I'm in. Because really, the hardest part about the fleet was trying to get my paperwork pushed through, because they had said it takes, I asked them what was how do I fast track my way back to buds. They said, go take this 1 year billet, Guantanamo Bay. You do it for a year, then you can come back. No questions asked. Oh, I was like, okay, that gives me a year to train. And that was kind of like my mindset. And I get down there and there's a little bait and switch, and they just pulled like a little okey doke on me. And oh well, you got to strike a rate first, and then you have to go to spend time in the fleet in that rate and all this other stuff. So it was just battling this admin demon of trying to find loopholes and get my paperwork pushed through. I mean, that was the biggest challenge. Now, for other people, when you get down in the slump or whatever, I mean, I'm a firm believer in training, working out, breaking a sweat, doing something every day that sucks, because it makes you tougher, it makes you stronger. You feel better when you do something that you didn't want to do or that's challenging and tough. And especially if it's a workout, I mean, that's why CrossFit blew up so much, because it's like, it's these workouts aren't fun, they suck, and you really got to just, gut it out, grit your teeth and grind through it. And then you feel great afterwards. If you got into an altercation or somebody tried to, grab you, like, can you get out of it? Your strength, that's something you can take with you everywhere. They don't check that at TSA when you're going through. You can't carry weapons, but if you're, drill and train yourself and, sharpen your body to be a weapon, then you're less likely to get into an altercation where you can't handle yourself. And again, it goes back to the mentality. Afterwards, you feel great. After you do your training, then it becomes a lifestyle. Every day you start back at zero, right? Go to sleep, you get your rest, next day starts. And I try to get my workouts knocked out as early as possible because, I got little kids and I try to do it before they wake up. And then that way I can spend time with them and enjoy them without thinking about, I got to get to the gym. I got to get to the gym, right? Because then I start getting irritable. I would say, working out and having that be part of your lifestyle and not compromising on your workouts and your training it's huge.
You said something really interesting where you mentioned CrossFit and you said, it sucks and it's rough, but you got to grit your teeth and go through it. But the thing is, that it's going to be over in an hour, right? For you, you had no idea when you were going to get that opportunity to go back to Buds, right? They told you a year and then ended up being, how long did it end up being before you got that opportunity to go?
It was almost 2. So I was in Guantanamo Bay for 19 months. So I got dropped, if my memory serves me correctly, August 31st, 2007. And then I stayed in San Diego for a few months. And then I had to go in Gulfport, Mississippi. And then we were there for maybe like a month or so. And then we shot up to Seattle and we did some training there. And then I think it was around January of 2008, I went to Guantanamo Bay and I was there for 19 months. That hopelessness feeling, because you don't know if your orders are going to get approved. You've got everybody shitting on you the whole time. You got the chief admin lady who does the orders. She hated all of us that were trying to go back, because we all went in there trying to sit down and be cordial and talk to her about getting our paperwork signed off and getting it pushed through and this and that. And everybody's like, oh, take it easy. You just got here. You got to do your time. It's funny. Like we went down there to be prison guards and I actually felt like I was like a prisoner. It's like you find a way or you make a way, and that's what we all pretty much did. One door shuts, you go try to break down another one, and you just keep doing that until you figure it out.
Did you find it easier in terms of morale because you had a bunch of guys with you that were all on the same mission versus doing it on your own?
It definitely helped to have guys there that, especially the guys that I got dropped with, because there was a pool of us. Some guys quit, including myself. I think there was only 3 of us that got dropped, and we all got dropped for the same thing.
Just so I'm clear, and for our listener to be clear, if you quit, you don't get the opportunity to go back.
Maybe that's how it is nowadays.
I don't know. I'm just asking. If you quit, do you get that opportunity?
So a lot of these guys, most of the guys that quit did have an opportunity to go back.
Okay.
And I think it was just as hard for us, the guys who got dropped, to get our orders as it was for the guys who quit, which kind of seemed weird. But it's like, it's one of those things too, where I'm like, you can't worry about like what somebody else is, doing. It's like, I got to get mine. Like, and I'm going to share the information that I get. Like, and we would do that. We would go to work and then after work, go talk to whoever we had to talk to or try to set up interviews or appointments with whoever. And then at the end of the day, we would just huddle up, be like, hey, what information did you get? Like, who did you talk to? Oh, yeah, I talked to this person. Yeah, me too. Okay, I got pointed in this direction. Go talk to them. Or, hey, look, this person just told me that there's a way to do it this way or whatever. And so, you share the information because, you want your buddies to, go back too. But at the end of the day, it's like, guys would get their orders before me. There was only a few guys that got their orders before me. And I'm like, damn it, like, where's mine? Like, I got to get mine, and then like when I got my orders, I pinned them on my cork board in my little room. And I was like, that's my trident right there. Like I got it now. Just because I knew, like, it was like, that's all I needed was just another shot. So it was definitely good having buddies down there because, they, accountability, somebody to work out with and train with, somebody to bitch with, somebody to, joke around with, share information with, all that stuff. Like, it was definitely, we had our little crew and we had a great, like, success rate going back. out of like, I think there might have been 10 or 12 of us. And I think only like 3 or 4 quit or didn't make it. So we had a pretty good turnover rate going back. I don't think there's retreads anymore because, this was back in 2008, 2009, and it wasn't, all the books and the movies hadn't come out yet. And there wasn't this huge push for guys to, join the teams, and they wasn't getting flooded. So we kind of lucked out with that opportunity.
And you mentioned in an interview that I just want our listeners to hear, because I thought it was a really great piece of advice. You burnt a lot of bridges to get to where you had to go. Like you did whatever you had to do to get there without caring about, it was like, I have a goal. And, in a way, like I'm already getting screwed. You told me a year, you told me this, like you're pushing me. And at some point I have to push back, and
Totally.
I'm pushing back. And I just wanted our listeners to understand and hear that, because you were nice in the beginning, and then it got to a point where it's like, and I'm not going to get bullied anymore. I'm going to get to where I want to get to. And during that time, you trained incredibly hard. You were in the pool every single day, right? You were working. So that way you were ready for Buds 4 class number. We were what, 281, right? You went back to Buds, and you got rolled in Hell Week. How did that feel for you to get rolled your first time, even though it was medical? Was it, God, not again? Like, was it, or because you had this momentum going? It's like, this is your trident. You just got it.
I mean, it was one of those things where that was the coldest Hell Week, and that was, I mean, that cold, it sucks the life out of you. Like I was in like February, and like you could see your breath in the water. It was bad. It was miserable. There were so many guys that quit. That was probably the toughest Buds class I was in, was 281, and those dudes were all, pipe hitters, badass dudes, and it was a bummer to get rolled, but I was down so hard. I mean, my battery was just drained, and I mean, I was coughing up blood. My vision was off. Like it was like my eyes were crossed, and I just remember thinking like I'm seeing things on the right on the left, and vice versa. It was wild. And I'm like, this is different than like the training's hard and I am not keeping up. It's like something's not right. I was thankful that it was a legit medical issue, because then I'm like, okay, like this isn't just me like being a wuss or not keeping up. It's like there's nothing I could do about this. Like it was all, and really what it was all that runoff from Mexico in the water, and it's, you get this. It's called red tide. They don't even put trainees in the water anymore if there's red tide. I was talking to some guys recently, and they're like, "Yeah, it's these guys haven't been in the water for like a month or whatever because of the runoff from Mexico, and it gets you sick." And I had SIPE and pneumonia, which SIPE is swimmer-induced pulmonary edema, which, I was just coughing up blood. I had all this fluid in my lungs, and that was on Tuesday, like in the morning. If I would have made it to Wednesday and that had happened, I would have gotten rolled forward, and I wouldn't have had to complete the rest of Hell Week, and I would have just probably gotten rolled into the next class and then picked up with them after they made it through Hell Week. I'm glad that it didn't work out that way. I mean, I know a few people who have gotten rolled forward, and I'm just, I got the full Benny, full benefit of the training. And, at first I was like kind of relieved to take the roll because I was just, smoked. But then I'm like, oh, I got to do this again, like for a fourth time, like a first phase. The beginning of first phase is the worst. It's like those first 3 weeks, like Hell Week is what it is. It's 1 week where you don't sleep for a few days, which I found to be better than going to sleep for 20 minutes and then waking up and starting a new day, because that happened, in the first 3 weeks of first phase, because you've got, once the day's over, especially if you have like a nighttime evolution, right? You may finish at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, but that doesn't mean you're done. You still got collateral duties you got to do. You got to clean the trucks. You got to clean the boats. You got to clean the barracks, you got to clean your gear, you've got to sharpen your knife, you've got to polish your boots. I mean, and that keeps you up like till 3, 4 in the morning sometimes. And then, oh, it's 4:30. We got to get back on the grinder, or we got to get to chow or whatever. So I thought the first 3 weeks were worse than Hell Week. And when I when I looked at having to do that again, I that was a blow to the morale for sure.
You know, Coach Mack used to say, I think I mentioned when the hardest day is the second day, you know, because the first day is so hard, you know, our brain's job is to keep us safe. So it pushes us away from anything that's painful, you know, to pleasure. And for you saying the first 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks are the worst, right? How are you controlling your body to get yourself to not only just show up, but well, you were ready. You were always going to show up. Like you had that no quit attitude. But how did you get your body to not let the whole, it's painful, it sucks, it's this, it's that, like to just go back? Does that make sense? Am I making it?
Yeah, I mean, so
Like it's frustrating, you know, like it's
yeah,
frustrating to have to like do it again and do it again and do it again. And at some point, like, you know, you've done it so much and you went through like the suck where it's like, it got to be like, God, I just want to make it to the next round. Just give me
well,
that.
it was one of those things where come hell or high water, I'm getting my trident. I will make this happen. And so I never thought about quitting like during the training. Like there was never a time where I'm like, oh my God, this hurts so bad, I can't take it anymore. This is so cold, I got to go, quit. It was never like that. The only time I ever thought about quitting was after that last roll for the pneumonia. I was in between classes. I was waiting to class back up, and I was driving in my car to go get coffee and a breakfast burrito. And I had the heat on. I had my hoodie on. I had my board shorts on, flip flops, and I'm like comfy. And I'm driving in my car, and I was just thinking about how I had to do this again, like from the beginning. This is like the worst case scenario. It's like I'm back to the beginning. Day 1-1. I got to do all that over. I mean, it's a nightmare. It's not easy. It sucks. It's like you don't get. It's not like you get stronger or you know used to it or adjusted. It's still just as hard, and you don't get the luxury of your body like staying strong and staying in shape, because buds, it's not a place you go to get in shape. Like you actually get broken down and beaten. That's why there's so many medical rolls, medical drops. Is like you're getting hammered before you go to buds. You got to make sure you're in like the best shape you can be in, right? And you do that by whatever, CrossFit, running, swimming, lifting, lunges, things like that. But you do it in a controlled setting, like your gym, or a track to run, or a pool to swim, or whatever. But like running on soft sand in boots and long pants when you're soaking wet and covered in sand, that's not like you're getting faster or stronger. It's like this sucks, and it's like I got to keep up. I got to like pass. I got to um, not just keep up and pass, but I got to like perform and excel. Right? I got to be like ahead of the pack, ahead of the herd. Thinking about having to go through all that again, and knowing that I'm not like at the peak I was, because before I went back to buds, like that was the one thing about Gitmo, was like it kept me like I was able to train a lot. And so when I went back to buds, I was like, that was the strongest, fastest, leanest, meanest I'd ever been. I was fresh, I was ready to go. And that was actually what really sucked about getting rolled, is because I'm like, man, I just put my body through, 4.5 weeks of like torture. And now I'm not at my peak anymore. And if anything, I'm like, I've come down like significantly. My body's like was eating itself. I'm puking blood. I'm not as strong as I was, and but I've got to do all this over again, and it's a quick turnaround. I don't have the luxury of going back to the gym and resting and getting back in shape and going for these long comfortable runs or swims. Right? It's like I got to get back on the saddle and do this again, and it's like that right there is like. So that was the only time I thought about quitting, is when I'm like just cruising around thinking about all this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, like this is gonna be the like the hardest class. And it was, but it was like, I thought about like my options, what would I do if I quit? And it's like, that none of that sounds good. I was like, all right, so what do I want to do? It's like, I want to be a SEAL, right? It's like, that was always the goal. Well, how do I do that? I got to get back on the horse and go.
I really like all of that you said there. That was very, very inspiring. When you went back, you made it through Hell Week. I mean, well, this is you made it all the way up until the beginning of second phase now. We're in class 283, fifth time. Then you got medically rolled. But how did it feel for you, like knowing like I made it through, like I did it. I mean, you knew you were always going to do it. It's not like you knew you were going to do, you already did it once before. You got through Hell Week and you got through first phase once before. Now you got through a second time. And then how did that feel for you? And then how did it feel to like, and when you went back for 287, which is the sixth time you went back, like how was pool comp for you during that time? Because that was your biggest struggle. That was your hardest thing.
Well, as soon as we secured Hell Week, that's the first thing I thought of. Like, I looked around and everybody's like hugging each other and crying, like, we did it. And it's like, yeah, this ain't over. Like that was my first thought. And I get it. Like, I teared up too the first time I made it through Hell Week, because I was like, this is like everything that I had been focusing on for however many years of my life. And I just finished. So I get the emotional part of that. But for me, I was like, I've been here, I've done this. I've already been through all this before. It's like, I got to get to the next evolution that, that took me out of training, and I got to crush that, so all I thought about was pool comp, and just getting back to that. And I kind of had an idea of what was coming next. And, it's just, whatever, you take it on the chin and you just kind of keep trucking. But it was the pool comp that I was focused on.
Today's episode is sponsored by my favorite jewelry company, Omnia. Omnia blends genuine crystals with cutting-edge NFC technology to create the world's first smart crystal bracelet. This bracelet connects to the Elevate web application, giving you a membership to over 200 self-care resources, from meditations to journals to breathing exercises and so much more. Visit discoveromnia.com and use code MindsetPodcast for 40% off. DiscoverOmnia.com, your key to wellness.
How prepared did you feel for it? Like, or is it like, I'm hesitant, and, because you had a taste of it, you did it, right? But you didn't make it through, and you've been preparing for so long with swims and stuff like that. So how did it feel for you when you were going through it?
So going into it, like, that whole week is pool evolutions, right? You start out Monday, it's pretty basic stuff. And then it starts to kind of ramp up. And by the time you get to Friday, that's where you're doing your pool comp test. I crushed it the whole week. And then it got to pool comp, and I tried to I tried to trick my brain into being like, this is nothing, like, I got this. I'm not going to give this any more attention than what it needs. And I'm just going to go in there and I'm just going to do it. And then I failed my first two tests. I was like, uh-oh, here we go again. And the difference between the first time I failed and this time was that I trained the entire weekend to pass that test, because they give you these wooden tanks. It's like a replica of the tanks that you use in the tests. And you can go out on the grinder and practice with them. That whole weekend I practiced 6 hours on Saturday, 6 hours on Sunday. I just drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled. And I actually told myself, like, I'm not leaving this grinder until I can do whatever that drill was that I made up in my head. Like, I filled my mask up with water. I'd hold my breath and I'd go through my procedures and I would do it. I can't remember exactly what my protocol was or what I set up for myself, but I told myself, like, I'm going to do this many times, perfect, before I leave the grinder. And it took me 6 hours each day to do it. And I mean, it got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm ready. I feel ready for this. And, I went in Monday morning and I crushed it. And I felt that, like, I knew I did. And I knew going into it that I would. There was a ton of pressure, and most of it, and that's the thing about, a lot of this training is a lot of it's self-induced pressure that you put on yourself too. It is tricky, and there are things that, that aren't easy by design, but you've got to switch your brain to like, I'm going to do this. I brainwashed myself into being a SEAL. I told myself, like, before I ever even had a trident, it's like, I am a SEAL, and that's what they tell you in the beginning. It's like, we don't make SEALs and buds, we find them. And it's like, you either got it or you don't. If that's what you believe about yourself, that you are a SEAL, then you're going to find a way to get this done. Whether it's getting your orders back to buds, whether it's getting through Hell Week, whether it's passing pool comp, whatever it is, it's like, you're going to find a way to get the job done.
I just find you really inspiring. The more and more I'm talking to you, it's just like, oh my God, you just don't give up. You just go and take your beating time after time and just get to what you want. And it's very, very inspiring and motivating. So I need to know, how did it feel for you when you March 2nd, 2012? How did that feel?
It was the second best day of my life. It was the best until I got married, and then now it's the second best. I feel like the day before was more of the graduation than the actual graduation, because we did like this, the whole class went on this run out at the cemetery in Point Loma. And I think maybe we had like, I don't know, 50 guys graduate. So we went to 50 different tombstones where SEALs were buried. And each guy got like a K-bar knife with like a trident engraved on it and the name of the frogman who died and whose grave we were visiting. So we just went to each grave. We read out the bio about the guy who died, and just ran around the whole cemetery. And I was like, this is badass. It's like, there's no cameras, there's no family members. It's just like you and your boys and the CO and some instructors who came out just to, kind of give you, welcome you in. It's like, this is really cool. And then the next day was graduation, and that's just, a big show. And it was cool. It was fun. Family came out. I felt like it was more for them, but it was great. It was like, finally.
Yeah, yeah, you did it. Yeah. And I think your career is pretty amazing of, you went to the teams, but then you became a sniper, breacher, canine handler. And from what I was listening to, please correct me if I'm not right. It was just kind of like you said yes. It was like you just right place, right time, yes to things. Can you talk further on that? Because I think that's so important. Sometimes we let our fear stop us. We don't say yes because it's like, I don't think I can do it. I don't know. We're like here. And it was interesting too. I want to bring up when you were in your car and you were comfortable, you're in a sweatshirt with flip flops, and you're like, this is when I was thinking about quitting. It was because, well, you were only thinking, right? But you said at Buds, like, you don't have time to think. Like when you don't do well or do something like that, it's like, or when you just pass on the skin of your teeth, you have to keep moving because you don't have time to think. So for yourself, when you like made it through and stuff, and you were this yes man that was like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll go to sniper school. You became a breacher. You were a canine handler. You did all this stuff. So for yourself, like, how was it for you in terms of like just saying yes, being at the right place, right time? Like, tell us about that. Maybe like some advice for our audience to say yes to things.
Those 3 qualifications I got, that was my trifecta. Like before I even like knew anything about those quals, before I even joined the Navy, I was like, those are the 3 things I want to do in the SEAL teams. It's like, sniper just sounds badass. Breacher, same thing. Canines, who doesn't love dogs, right? And now I get one as my buddy, my little shooting swim buddy, and I get to take, man's best friend, and he's going to go eat people. Like, come on. So those were always the goals anyway.
Oh, you like wanted that.
Well, those were what I always wanted, those schools.
Okay.
And it wasn't like they asked me, hey, you want to go to these? Well, before I get into that, I will say there is like power and a karma to volunteering and saying yes to things that you may not want to do. Like, I was told early on in my career, like, always volunteer for things, especially as a new guy. first hand up, like, I'll do it, whatever it is, right? Even if you don't know what you're doing, you figure it out, right? And even if it sucks, you volunteered, and people remember that, and that actually it paid off for me in the end. I never really asked for favors, but I always volunteered for things. If I needed a favor or if something happened where I got in trouble, like I had a good reputation for volunteering and always being the guy to go, be the first one to go do whatever, right? And people remember that kind of thing. And I think it definitely paid off for me in the long run. So volunteering for things that you don't want to do, or, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about doing something every day that you don't want to do, right? If you volunteer for something that you don't want to do, but they need somebody to do it, you'll figure it out, you'll get it done, and then you move on with your life. And then you just put money in the bank for the future. And so, there's definitely like some power there. And I think that's key. And then as far as like the schools, I went into my platoon with no schools. I had nothing to really contribute other than being, a pack mule to carry the gear in and out of the op that we were going on, carrying the big gun, which I wanted to do anyway. And, we got all the new guys got spun up on another piece of equipment that one of our techs used. It was a Tacky W. It's basically this big antenna that helps you track your, triangulate locations and things like that. But it's not really a qual. It's just like, hey, we just need a meatball new guy to carry some more heavy stuff. So I didn't have any schools. So when we were kind of like 3/4 of the way through our deployment, my chief asked me, like, Collins, like, what do you want to do? What school do you want to go to? I was like, sniper. That was my first answer. Then I had to try out for it because other guys wanted to go, and there's, a certain number of slots for sniper positions. So we had to have like a little shooting contest. I crushed that. Then we get back to the strand after deployment, and they're like, oh, well, that didn't count. We got to do it like a legit one with, at this range, this authorized range, and with the cadre and with all these people. And so other guys started, coming out of the woodwork to go try to secure a spot, even though I had already gotten mine. It was like, oh, that doesn't count. We're going to go shoot again. But then I crushed that one too. I can shoot, I don't know a whole lot about guns, but I can shoot. I like to think of it like I'm not the mechanic, I'm the race car driver, and I got the opportunity to go to sniper school, and then it turned into a right place, right time kind of thing. Because once I got back from sniper school, the other guys, they ended up getting a chance, and they got to go too. After I got back from sniper school, and those guys went, somebody came into our team room and was like, hey, we need somebody to go to the dog training course. I'm like, boom, right here. I'll go. Like, volunteer if you don't want to do it, volunteer even faster if you do, so I got hooked up there again, right place, right time. So went and did that training, and that was my favorite thing about the teams, was working with the dogs. Sniper stuff is cool, but it's everybody wants to be a sniper, and it usually goes to whoever's more seasoned or more popular or whatever. Everybody wants to do the sniper thing. But the dog thing, it was like, it felt like the hidden secret within the teams. It's like the job within the job that's kind of exclusive. There's not a lot of dog guys, and that was pretty cool. And then while I was there, I ended up getting the opportunity to go to breacher school. I was an instructor at the time too. I wasn't even active in my platoon anymore. Like when I did my second platoon, I was sniper qualled and canine qualled, but I did the canine thing because we had, I don't know, 4 or 5 snipers in the platoon, but I was the only canine guy. So when I did my second platoon, I was the canine guy, and I let the other guys, do the sniper thing. And then I got back from my second deployment and went over to the canine school and became an instructor over there. And that's where I spent the rest of my time in the Navy. And while I was there, I went home for a couple of weeks for leave, and then came back, and my chief was like, hey, the other instructor at the dog team, he passed on going to breacher school. Would you want to go? It's like, hell yeah. So then I went back home for another month. And so I had like a 6-week vacation because breacher school it was so much fun. I got to do it as an instructor, which, it happens, but not often. And it's another feather in my cap. It was the last school that I wanted to get. It was like a good old boys club, and you're just blowing things up and cutting things up with chainsaws and torching stuff, and still doing like house runs. I mean, it was a good time, and it's one of those things too where getting through buds and getting to the teams, all these doors were locked, and getting slammed in my face, and I felt like I was just trying to break down every one of them. Once I got through, I felt like all these doors opened up for me. And it's like, had I quit, had I given up, or just been like, I can't do another hell week or another first phase, or I'm done, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, obviously. But it's made my path like so much more rewarding in the teams, getting to go to all these schools, getting the opportunity to deploy and just go places, meet people, learn and all this stuff, and then getting out and doing everything that I've been doing since I got out. It's just like on the back end, like, yeah, it sucked, and it was tough, but not quitting has paid off tremendously on the back end. That would be my like advice to anybody that is ever thinking about getting up, is like, this too shall pass, right? So suck it up, bite your teeth, put your head down, drive forward. When it's over, it's over. And it's one of those things too, where like, looking back on it, not many people can say they've done 4 first phases and 2.5 hell weeks, I mean, at the time, I'm like, I felt like I was just getting dealt a bad hand, and I'm like, how in the hell am I going to do this? And it was just like, it was torture, and it sucked. But then now looking back on it, I'm like, I don't even know how I did it. Like, it's rewarding to not have given up on my goal, to just being a stubborn bastard and just punching my way through.
So what do you have for us listeners here to build that mental toughness and that grit, to develop that never quit attitude, so when challenges come our way, we can be as strong as you to keep going and not quit? And what do you got for us?
Having a strong faith is also a big part of it. I prayed hard. I believed in the process and that everything happens for a reason. Just keep doing the right thing and it's going to work out. It's not going to be easy, right? So I put my faith in God, and I'm going to pray hard, and I'm going to just keep pushing, doing hard things outside of your comfort zone, right? So it just in the training, like in my own personal training, like day to day, like nobody wants to wake up at 4 a.m. and go do a run or go for a swim or do a lift or whatever, but you do it and you feel better, you feel stronger, you're up before the enemy, as Jocko likes to say. I mean, I dig that. You're up before the enemy, you're up before most people, right? You're already ahead of the game. You got a clear mind for the rest of the day. I mean, I really think that the more hard things you do, the more hard you become, right? And it's not that these things get easier. It's like you get stronger, you get harder. It can seem like a daunting task at first. It can seem like you're looking up at a mountain, right? But you don't have to go for a 6-mile run at 4 a.m, on day one, right? You can wake up at 5:30 or 6 and go for a mile run, right? You can wake up at 5 o'clock and do 50 push-ups or, whatever. You start small. They say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So don't overwhelm yourself, because I think that people do that too. They overwhelm themselves with this huge task or this huge undertaking. And it's like, it doesn't need to be that way. Take small bites, get small victories, and then, you start getting rolling. The way I look at it too is like the momentum it's like a train. When you're at a dead stop and you're at the station, getting those wheels turning and getting chugging, it takes some time. But once you start moving, right, you get into week 3, week 4. I mean, you're cruising now. The wheels are spinning. That those coals are burning on the engine there, and you're flying. So you can miss a day or two. I wouldn't miss more than two. I wouldn't really miss more than one. But you could take a rest day, and your training's not going to fall off, right? Because you're cruising. But starting out it's really the hard. To me, I think the hardest part is starting out, right? Once it's that first step, right? But once you get going, then it becomes a lifestyle. I'm not doing this for the Instagram likes, or I'm not doing this for show. It's like it just becomes part of your daily routine. It becomes part of your life. It's becomes habit. So yeah, I think doing hard things makes you hard. If you're sitting on your phone, or on your couch, or just lollygagging through life, don't expect things to come to you. Nobody ever fell to the top of the mountain, right? We've all heard that. And here's the thing: it's like what I'm saying is nothing that hasn't been said before, or that people don't know. It's just like there's knowing, and then there's doing, and then there's putting them together. You got to take action.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what it is. Like all the time, people pay for a trainer to come up with workouts for them and take them to the gym. And it's like, look, just pick something, go online, pick something, and be consistent with it. It's like consistency is key. I mean, if you consistently don't do anything, then nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. But if you're consistently running, consistently swimming, consistently studying, consistently doing whatever, like you're going to see results, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Like you're going to see results. You just got to stick with it. A lot of people think that, success happens overnight, or, they lose weight overnight, or whatever overnight. It's like, no, it takes time. So you just got to trust the process, have faith, right? And then, don't quit. Just keep going.
I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much and thanks for being here. Really enjoyed talking with you. I think your story is just very, very motivating. For just, challenges come our way, having faith, teaching ourselves that we are that person. I am a Navy SEAL, that's what you did for yourself to get there, and not quit. Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you. Yeah, no worries. And everyone that's listening, please like, share, comment, subscribe, become a Patreon member so you never miss an episode. And I will see you all next week. Thank you.